My dad never talked about his time in Vietnam until the day a stranger knocked on our door wearing his old dog tags. I grew up knowing my father had served in Vietnam, but that's about all I knew. The few times I asked about it as a kid, his eyes would cloud over and he'd mumble something about just doing his job before changing the subject. Mom always warned us not to push him. Some memories are better left buried, she'd say. Dad was the gentlest man I knew, a high school history teacher who spent weekends volunteering at the animal shelter. He flinched at fireworks, slept with a nightlight, and occasionally woke up shouting. Last Memorial Day, while Dad was grilling in the backyard, someone knocked on our front door. I opened it to find a middle-aged Vietnamese man standing there clutching a small wooden box. He looked nervous. Is this the home of Sergeant Michael Collins? He asked with a slight accent. I nodded, suddenly wary. In 28 years, I'd never heard anyone call my father Sergeant. My name is Cal Trenel, he said. Your father saved my life in 1971. I've been looking for him for almost 15 years before I could respond. Dad appeared behind me, spatula still in hand. When he saw the visitor, the spatula clattered to the floor. The two men stared at each other in silence, decades collapsing between them. You made it, Dad finally whispered, his voice cracking. You actually made it out. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my father. Colbert opened the wooden box and pulled out a set of tarnished dog tags, Parrot, my father's dog tags, Parrot, along with a faded photograph of a much younger version of my dad holding a small Vietnamese child. Over dinner with Mom and my siblings gathered around in stunned silence, the story finally emerged in 1971. Dad's unit had been operating near a village that came under heavy fire against orders. Dad ran into a burning hut where he heard a child screaming. He rescued 5-year-old Alti, whose parents had been killed in the attack. He hid me for 3 days, Colt had explained, sharing his rations and treating a wound on my leg. When it was safe, he carried me 10 miles to a medical outpost run by missionaries. He gave me his dog tags and told me, when you are scared, hold these and remember someone cares. They transferred me to another unit the next day. I got written up for disobeying orders. Mine nodded. The missionaries evacuated me to Saigon, then to the Philippines. Sa Lai was adopted by an American family in California. He looked at my father with tears in his eyes. I became a doctor because of you. I wanted to save lives the way you saved mine. After dinner, Dad took Ethel to a study part, a room I'd rarely been allowed to enter, growing up through the partially open door. I watched his dad unlock a drawer I never knew existed and pulled out a small box of his own. Inside was a child's sandal, impossibly small and worn. I kept it, Dad said quietly, to remind myself that even in the worst of humanity, we can still find moments worth saving. That night, long after Clopo had left with promises to return with his family, I found Dad sitting alone on the porch swing. Why didn't you ever tell us? I asked, sitting beside him. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he said, I did so many things in Vietnam I am not proud of. Things that haunt me. Ost was the one good thing. Parent the one pure thing, Pertier, and I couldn't bear it if he hadn't made it. So I locked it all away. Dad started therapy the following month. Josh and other stories emerged, turned some heartbreaking, some heroic, all part of the complicated man I thought I knew completely, but had only begun to understand last week. We attended Altai Stotter's medical school graduation. She's specializing in trauma surgery and veterans PNT. Dad sat in the audience back straight, finally wearing his service medals for the first time in 50 years. Sometimes the most important stories in our family history remain untold until the right moment or the right person comes knocking at our door, and sometimes a single act of kindness in the darkest moment can create ripples that change lives for generations.